If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
You are listening to MINDSHOCK True Crime. This is the Emma Fillipoff series, Emma Fillipoff Part 2, Tracing Her Steps. I am your host, Bruce McGuire.
I'm Maxwell Power.
And we are going to go through an in-depth timeline, trying to trace all of her steps up to her disappearance in typical MINDSHOCK fashion, leaving no stone unturned. As always, if you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you like the podcast, hit the like button. Feel free to share it across social media platforms. Make sure to follow and like our Facebook page for exclusive updates and releases. And you could also check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon. And patrons do get priority for case requests. All right, Maxwell, so now that you've had quite some time since our first episode to think about what happened to Emma Fillipoff, do you have a leading theory?
I do not. I might need a review on Emma Fillipoff. I know she went missing. She had a van that she lived in a couple days or something like that, and then this. I don't remember.
Yeah, the circumstances of the van and many other things in this case are all very bizarre. It's the more I dove into the case, there does seem to be some shady element surrounding her life. And again, as we've talked about in the first episode, if she was having personal or mental problems and was vulnerable, doesn't that increase the chance that she would be the victim of some kind of predator instead of decrease? Because now, if she's not, people always say in the true crime community, there's a lot of online chatter about people that wander off and die because they're in some kind of mental haze or conditioning. Wouldn't that make it more likely that, some kind of shady individual would take advantage of them because they don't even know what's going on? It's really mind-boggling, mind-shocking, if you will, for people to just completely write off any and all possible nefarious activity because someone may have been having mental issues. And we've looked at this. It's very possible she's not having mental issues. She's just an eccentric individual. And again, we really don't know. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. It's impossible to really give 100% definitive certainty to it. So let's get into it. Let's retrace her steps. So quick overview. We're going to go from fall 2011 to November 28th, 2012. So she moved from Perth, Ontario to Victoria, British Columbia. This is from helpfindemmafillipoff.com. Emma always wanted to live out west and made the move to Victoria in the fall of 2011. She was 25 at the time and had no home or job lined up. Her plan was to figure things out once she arrived. She told a friend she had a feeling something amazing was going to happen in Victoria. Life in Victoria. Emma lived with a childhood friend and friend's partner for a few months after her arrival, eventually moving to another unit in the same building. In the winter of 2011, she found employment as a barista at a cafe, but the job did not last long. After 2 or 3 months in Victoria, Emma developed a more transient lifestyle, moving in with another friend for a few months, living at Hotel 760, where she also worked cleaning rooms, staying on 2, possibly 3 boats, sleeping in the woods, and sometimes sleeping in a tree. From February to November 2012, she also stayed in the attic of the Sandy Merriman Women's Shelter on a rotating basis, usually for a month at a time. She obtained a seasonal job at the Inner Harbor seafood eatery, Redfish Bluefish, where she was employed during the busy months in 2012 until October 31st. She was expected to return to the job in February 2013. Another interesting point here. She did not get fired. She didn't necessarily quit with no intention to go back. It was a little bit of a temp job when they were seasonally more busy. So she did have technically a job lined up. This is not somebody with no hope wandering the streets, as sometimes it's presented. You following, Maxwell?
Gotcha.
And we touched upon that in the previous episode as well, but I thought it was another point to reiterate because some people really get stuck on their theory, or they just think, again, without knowing what happened, it's impossible to say what's more or less likely. And even if you could say what was more or less likely, what does that have to do with the truth? How would you know a less likely scenario didn't happen here? Likelihood can only be measured when comparing to other scenarios with the same amount of information. But the amount of information, not only is it different in every case, some of these pieces are unverifiable, and then we don't even know. We have some unknown unknowns. And then of course, known unknowns. There's so many variables missing, it's impossible to say what's more or less likely. And even if you could, that doesn't mean one thing didn't happen versus another thing. All right. During her time in Victoria, Emma communicated with family and friends back home through cryptic, poetic, upbeat emails and the occasional phone call on the holidays. Her loved ones were unaware that she was living in a shelter. Emma could often be found reading in the children's section of the library or quietly meditating in the sun. She enjoyed spending time with members of the homeless community, with boat owners and artists down at the Inner Harbor, and with street performers around town. The many friends and acquaintances she made in different circles describe her in such terms as free-spirited, creative, adventurous, giving, soft-spoken, private, independent, trusting, flighty, highly sensitive to people, and very brave to sleep alone in the woods. She is very kind and likes caring for people, especially the elderly, children, and pets. She is a skilled chef, photographer, and artist. She loves to write and maintains several journals and a blog. She prefers nature to city life, favors walking barefoot, loves travel and adventure, adores her family and friends, and is known to have an aversion to convention, intrusive questions, social media, cell phones, spending money, and playing any role in the establishment. When it's phrased like that, it almost paints her as more sane than the insane people who choose all those other things.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
While her beauty and friendly nature attracted the attention of many in Victoria, she only dated one person that year. The brief relationship ended after 3 months on a mutually positive note. She was reported to have enjoyed drinking and socializing with friends. She always offered a listening ear to others and freely shared her laughter and joy for life, but was not prone to sharing any inner thoughts or struggles. She told people how much she loved her family, but rarely talked about them. Huh. You think there's a clue there, Maxwell?
About her not talking about family?
Well, her freely talking about how much she loved her family, but not actually talking about the individuals themselves.
Not really. No, she's probably just private.
Friends said by summer of 2012, Emma was in search of a more pure lifestyle. She quit binge drinking in June and also cut out cigarettes, coffee, and sugar. Some say she had occasionally smoked marijuana, others report never seeing her take any kind of drug. She is vegan and said to have been experimenting with different combinations of food: grains of rice, popcorn, pieces of fish. By late summer, she was eating less and less and drinking copious amounts of water daily. A friend who also worked on the waterfront said she grew very thin and described her as becoming monk-like in her social and eating habits. She appeared to have trouble adapting to the changing seasons, and by beginning of fall, she seemed very unsure about where to go and what to do with herself in the upcoming winter months. Shortly before her disappearance, she began to distance herself from others, becoming fearful, withdrawn, and paranoid. All right, so that's the background. Now let's get into her van, because the van is bizarre, and I've often stated in the previous episode that it's a lot of the trouble seemed to possibly have started with the van. It could have started a chain reaction when her van was towed. So in June or July of 2012, Emma purchased a van with the intention of living in it and traveling around the island. Staff from a storage facility remember her Beaming with joy the day she moved her personal effects from locker to the van. She was thrilled to be reunited with her belongings and looked forward to the independence the vehicle would provide her. However, in time, the hopeful purchase proved to be a financial burden and hindrance to the freedom she sought. The van had to be towed 3 times shortly before Emma vanished, and she had been asking around for the name of an inexpensive mechanic. So that's another interesting piece of information I don't believe we went over in episode 1, that she was asking for an inexpensive mechanic. Okay, travel plan. All right, we'll come back to the van in a moment. We're just going down all this background information. Travel plans. Emma talked to many people about her desire to travel and seemed to be preparing for some kind of move. In mid-November, she told a friend she was leaving Victoria and possibly heading to Salt Spring Island or Tofino, British Columbia. Friends recall her other plans: sailing on a boat to Mexico, heading to San Juan with a man she barely knew, moving to California, moving to Costa Rica, traveling to Japan with her father. That's one that's come up a bunch of times. Living off the grid somewhere in the woods, visiting an aunt in Lanceville, British Columbia, and surprising her family by going back home to Perth, Ontario. Okay, so that's a wide range of travel plans. How do we parse through these plans to see what seems to be more or less likely? What jumps out to me is going to San Juan with a man she barely knew. I wonder where they got that piece of information.
Okay.
Does that seem a little bit strange or potentially dangerous to you, Maxwell?
That she got picked up by a stranger?
No, not at all. That people were sharing her plans, and she said one of them was to go to San Juan with a man she barely knew. Not a stranger, so it's an acquaintance of some kind. So either this acquaintance offered to go to San Juan, or if she had just met him once or twice or 3 times, they just randomly talked about it. That's what I just said 2 times now.
Um, it's okay. I don't know. You gotta trust people.
Was that Maxwell's advice to the world? I don't think that's good advice, Maxwell. We're doing a missing persons podcast.
um, I don't know, because I've done the same. I don't know. Just
Well,
I've
maybe
done.
you might not be a random predator's number one target to to kidnap and put, like.
Yeah, I know. I guess for like a pretty girl, it's different, but
All right, so no further thoughts from Maxwell. Early warning signs. Entries in Emma's journal suggest she had been privately suffering with mental health issues as early as the age of 11. For years, her secretive and quiet nature enabled her to hide her inner turmoil from family and friends. You know what's weird though? Like, we went through her poems on the previous episode, and going through some of her writings, and the analysis on the Fifth Estate also, it did not seem like she was suicidal, and there's, obviously different experts would agree interpreting those poems and language. Is it possible she's just simply eccentric? People label this mental illness because it's not like everybody else. So that might be premature and even inaccurate, because if she's not normal, and by normal the definition being average, that doesn't mean she has a mental illness to the point where she can't live life. I mean, we don't know. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But I don't know if we can just base that off journal entries. And especially like starting at age 11, what does that mean? I mean, humans are still developing. If that was just her nature of being eccentric or whatnot, being different than most people, and it was manifesting early, and it had nothing to do with being non-functional, because she seemed to have been, again, some people say her mental health issues declined, and if that was the case, that's different. And we went over the one theory by, I don't know if it was a tarot reading or a psychic reading, that she might have been developing Hashimoto's disease or a thyroid condition due to her diet experimentation, which could have led to some issues. Obviously, no body was found, so it's the whole case is very, very difficult. So much information, but In the winter of 2011, a childhood friend and roommate in Victoria saw warning signs when she observed Emma often obsessively arranging patterns using objects such as feathers, shells, rocks, and food. Sometimes she insisted others participate in these compulsive rituals. Her friend contacted Emma's father, James, out of concern after she woke one night to find Emma outside in a euphoric state, high on the grass and stars. Emma was very upset to learn James had been contacted and declined his offer to fly her home. She insisted she would be fine on her own. Her parents were divorced and her father failed to inform Emma's mother, Shelley, about the incident. Shelley had stated she would have flown out immediately had she been aware of what was going on. According to 3 friends in British Columbia, Emma had been experiencing ongoing stress related to feeling harassed by someone she had a bad experience with years prior in Campbell River, British Columbia, where she studied culinary arts in 2008-2009. She did not provide details, nor did she reveal his identity to her friends and in her journal. That's pretty interesting, though. So, yes, we talked about this individual briefly in the first episode as well. So, she either had a stalker or some kind of individual that she was involved with. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Why do you think she didn't name him, mention him to anybody, or write him down in her private journal, which I guess she either wasn't expecting anybody to read, or if she was expecting people to read it, she didn't want to name him because maybe she believed she was partly responsible or some other thing that may or may not have been true, but it may have led her to not write his name. What are the reasons she might have not named him?
Could be just random. I mean, because I sometimes write journals and I forget to put things in.
Yeah, but not everybody's as forgetful as you, Maxwell. Like normally, people would write at least the first name, right? If they don't want the individual to face any legal ramifications, you would at least either put the first name or a nickname, right?
I'm talking just like putting in the journal the events or whatever.
But she did put the events. She just didn't put his name.
Ah, no kidding.
Yeah. Do you pay attention at all, Max?
I didn't know. Oh, that's cool. That's weird. All right, I get it.
Well, she didn't say I don't know if she did the exact details. She's someone. So 3 friends in British Columbia said that Emma had been experiencing ongoing stress related to feeling harassed by someone she had a bad experience with years prior in Campbell River. That's kind of weird. That's if that was several years prior, 2008, 2009. That's not that many years. 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years. She did not provide details, nor did she reveal his identity to her friends and in her journal. Yeah, it's weird the way that's phrased. Maybe there were no details in the journal, but it says she did not provide details, nor did she reveal his identity to her friends and in her journal. So maybe she didn't write it in her journal, but she apparently 3 friends said the same thing, that there was ongoing stress related to feeling harassed by someone. By this someone that she had a relationship with in 2008, 2009.
Okay.
Or actually, no, it says, man, this is not phrased well. Years prior in Campbell River. Campbell River was where she studied culinary arts in 2008, 2009. I guess we assume that was during that time period. All right. A roommate recalls Emma expressing the need to avoid social situations where she had to interact with men. The reason she chose not to stay in co-ed shelters. Those who knew her in Victoria say Emma seemed friendly, articulate, playful, clever, and sociable. However, by early November of 2012, she had grown distant, and friends noticed a dramatic change in her behavior and personality. She refused invitations to go on adventures, canceled a trip to Mexico with a friend at the last minute. Okay, that's a new detail. So apparently there was a trip to Mexico. And again, people who say she didn't have any friends or whatnot, apparently she had a lot of friends. Just going through all of this history and details available, she had a lot of friends and acquaintances, it seems. And she was going to go on to Mexico with a friend, and she's a world traveler. She canceled last minute. Does that seem out of character, Maxwell? Especially if there is someone shady in this area, wouldn't she want to get away?
But when was that? When was that? As far as with the timeline and when she went missing,
It says by early November.
and when did she go missing?
Good thing you're doing a podcast on Emma Fillipoff.
What do you mean?
She went missing November 28th, 2012. So as I just stated a moment ago, in early November, so she went missing on the 28th. In early November, she had grown distant and friends noticed a dramatic change in her behavior and personality. She refused invitations to go on adventures, canceled a trip to Mexico with a friend at the last minute, and generally seemed frightened to go anywhere that wasn't the pier or the shelter. So yeah, that is a little strange. So this trip was early November. I guess if it was canceled last minute, it could have happened anywhere from early November to I guess mid-November to I guess several days before she vanished. We don't know. But that month, roughly that month, does that give you the information you need to give forth your input, or did you just ask that for no reason like you usually do?
I'm trying to see like the state of mind, like how, like, because you're saying that she had a lot of friends. I mean, and she, like, if she, because I don't remember the details, but like if she went missing the day before and she was about to go out with friends, it's kind of like I don't know, it's kind of weird. I'm trying to see her state of mind. So it's been a month. It's been a month that she's been in that state where she's kind of
A
like
couple weeks,
out of
yeah. Yeah, early November, so it'd be at a couple weeks, yeah.
it. So it's not like 6 months,
Right,
like
yes.
yeah. So yeah, and they said it's like a dramatic change. So like, how often did they see her? Did they see her like 2 months before that, and was it just that time? Like, so a month before that she was perfectly fine, and then they saw her again for that when they invited her out, and then she.
Well, we also have to call into question the friend's ability to even notice changes because if her normal eccentric personality is like this, where sometimes she's one way, sometimes she's another way, because some people are like that. So unless you were with that person every day for months and months and months, if they have some kind of normal mood swing cycle or something that appears to be mood swings, if that's their normal personality, and they caught her on a downturn and then they just happened to not hang out with her when she was on an upturn, that could account for it. Also, we have to examine if someone harmed her and if it was one of the friends, are they putting out false narratives? Because the mentally disturbed suicide angle, I mean, obviously that's a go-to to murderers covering their tracks, right?
Yeah.
But we don't know how many people were involved. If it was just one friend, it would seem unlikely that other friends would say the same thing, so we really don't know. But on the other hand, it's difficult. If some of these friends are homeless people or transients or whatnot, some of them might not give reliable testimony, or they might be described. Some of them might not be articulate, where maybe they were phrasing it as there was this one incident, but somehow the phrasing it came out where whoever was asking him the questions was led to believe it was numerous incidents, and then they ascribed that to a change in personality. We really don't know. We have to examine every single possibility here. So again, you want to finish your thought relating to the last minute canceled trip to Mexico? Because the question I was asking is if she's a world traveler, one, she would want to go. Two, if she felt like she was being harassed or stalked in that area, wouldn't she want to go to Mexico? Or
That's a good point.
was she paranoid with the friend that she was going with? Either justly so or unjustly so. Like, if that friend was involved with someone else who she was wary of, she might have just not wanted to deal with that friend in the first place, even though she might have wanted to go to Mexico. We don't know any of these variables. These are all missing variables. But this is MINDSHOCK, and we have to go through all of them. So, are you going to finish your thought or no? Now that you know when she went missing.
I'm mostly curious about, like, I'm trying to see just her state usually when I ask those questions.
Well, now that you know.
Now it's been a month.
Well, that trip could have
But
been a week. The trip could have been a week prior to disappearance. We don't know. We just know that between early November and November 28th, several things happened. Change in personality.
And you said, and I guess they were planning it. wait, they were pre-planned, and she wanted to go, and then she canceled last minute, right?
That's what it says.
And so the planning was like, I guess a month before. I'm guessing maybe. I
It
mean,
would.
if it's
It seems
so,
like
that
it
means
would. It's
she's
yeah.
still in the right state of mind.
It seems like it would be at least a few weeks, anywhere between a few weeks to a few months, right? People plan trips a few months ahead, especially with expensive airfare or whatnot. She might have planned that trip 6 months prior, but she chose to cancel it last minute in November. Not She didn't cancel it in October or September if it was planned many months ahead, which we don't know. You need to come out with a working memory supplement. It'd be like Maxwell Plus.
That's a good one.
But now that you have all this information in mind, now what? What are you going to do with it, Maxwell? If the trip was planned
I,
several months ahead, like most trips are, I don't know if I would say 1 month. It seems like people who, I mean, it could have been a month. What difference does it make? If it was a month or 6 months, she didn't choose to cancel it until that window between early November and November 28th.
I don't know. I was just curious.
You have no thought.
Well, I can't really gather like any, so like I can't really um I don't know. I need more information. I'm just trying
But
to get
there
to
is
know the girl.
But there is no more information. We're just discussing different theories. I didn't ask you for a obviously I know you don't know exactly what happened, but this is a true crime podcast where we're discussing possibility. I just laid out 3 points relating to the canceled trip. I'll lay them out again. One, if she's a world traveler, she likes adventure and travel. She would probably want to go on the trip to Mexico. Two, if she fears she has a stalker or somebody harassing her, she's wary of people in that area. She'd want to go to Mexico, get away, at least for a bit, right? Three, unless that friend that she was going with, there was either an issue, or she either justly or falsely believed that that friend was associated with someone else that she was wary of, so she'd rather just not deal with the friend in general. We don't know. But those are the 3 points of information that would help. Now, regardless of any of those that are true, you have absolutely no thoughts. I'm asking for the fifth time, I guess, relating the decision.
Well, you've covered a lot. I'm just saying it's probably just canceling something could be a sign of like depression. I mean, if she's really looking forward to it and she's really depressed, she doesn't really feel like doing anything.
That's a good point. That's a good point. If she was depressed, she might have done that. Yes. Okay. So it seems like she was frightened to go anywhere that wasn't the pier or the shelter. So the shelter, that makes sense, but the pier, is that really the safest place? I don't know. That's kind of weird also. About 2 weeks before she vanished, one friend recalled driving by the shelter and saw Emma looking cold and wet, standing motionless, staring blankly at a murder of crows nearby. I think that should be probably stated as she could have just been staring at crows nearby. I mean, I know a flock of crows is called a murder, but that it seems like that probably that word. I don't know if I would use it in a missing persons case, but anyway, so a friend drove by the shelter, saw Emma looking cold and wet, standing motionless, staring blankly at crows nearby. What do you think about that?
I missed it.
I said it twice.
Just the last part.
Said it twice back to back. She was cold and wet, standing motionless, staring blankly at crows nearby.
Oh shit, that's kind of cool.
Why would you say that was cool?
I don't know. It looked like a movie scene.
I don't see. That's kind of weird. Like I don't know if you do this, but some people. I mean, I've seen people zoned out, staring blankly. I mean, it depends on how long. If they're doing it for an hour, that's pretty disturbing. If she was doing it for like 1 minute, I don't know. I've seen people do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I've seen, homeless people do that. I've seen businessmen, on a commute, like they're just standing in the street. Sometimes they're just staring at something zoned out. And I'm sure I've done that too.
I do
Almost,
it all the time.
almost. I would imagine you would, Maxwell. But yeah, I don't know. Is that the brain just like taking a micro break from life, or she might have been fascinated by the crows? I mean, it is. I don't know. I don't know what we
Usually,
could read from it.
usually zoning out is kind of like internalizing the thought process. Like you're internally processing. You're inside your head, pretty much. To put it simply.
So without knowing if she was there doing that for 5 hours, I mean that would be alarming. But if she was doing it for a minute or two, I mean I don't know. I'm not sure what we could draw from that. Around this same time, shelter staff and residents also started to notice signs of paranoia and depression. She kept her curtains drawn at all times and was discovered frantically moving furniture from the shelter out to the curb and across the street because she claimed they were making too much noise and saying things to her. Just as she had done in Ontario before moving to Victoria, Emma began selling, donating, and even throwing away her personal belongings. This behavior led shelter staff to suspect she might be suicidal and or suffering from mental illness. Unable to contact her parents due to privacy laws, they called police to request a mental health check. Staff explained the situation over the phone, and police, rather than visit the shelter to assess Emma, told staff to call back if they noticed any more odd behavior. Staff did not call back. That's alarming. During this time, a concerned roommate encouraged Emma to spend less time at the shelter by taking out a membership at the YMCA and visiting the library as often as she could. She also strongly advised Emma to call her mother. So I don't believe we've discussed this individual. So this was a roommate that said this to Emma. You make anything of that, Maxwell, or did you not? Or did you miss that also?
Um. Uh. Yeah, I missed it.
Man, your brain is unusually off today. Emma made a series of tearful phone calls to her mother, starting on the night of November 23rd. Shelley assured her each time they spoke that she would make the necessary arrangements for her to come home. Emma consistently called back the next day, insisting she would stay in Victoria to work things out on her own. This cycle of changing her mind occurred 4 times over the next 4 days. During one of these phone calls, Emma told Shelley she did not know how she could face her. A close acquaintance reported seeing a very anxious Emma by the harbor a day or two before she vanished. When she asked their circle of friends what was wrong, they explained she was concerned about her mother arriving in Victoria. Emma's final call to her mother was made on the morning of the 28th. She said, "Don't come, Mom, not today." Shelley said there was a noticeable change in Emma's voice, which greatly concerned her. Again,
Shelley's the mom.
yes. Against the advice of family members who wanted to respect Emma's need for independence, Shelley put everything on hold and took a flight out later that same afternoon. With a history of mental illness in the family, her mother was very worried and felt Emma needed her. You can't argue with a mother's intuition. According to witnesses, Emma returned to the shelter at around 6 p.m. that evening and was informed by staff at Sandy Merriman that her mother was on her way. She became visibly upset and anxious and quickly stormed out of the shelter. Another resident tried to pursue her outside but was unable to catch up with her. It is unclear how staff knew Shelley was on her way, as she did not tell them she was coming. That was another bizarre point we discussed on episode 1. Shelley arrived at the shelter at around 11 p.m. and learned that Emma did not claim her bed that night. Shortly after midnight, shelter staff called police to report Emma as a missing person. This whole thing is just so sad because her mom must have just missed her by just a few hours. And how differently this could have all turned out if the staff did not tell her that her mother was coming. It's a very tough situation because obviously you want to value an adult's privacy. But here's the thing, though. This same staff called police for a mental health check. So clearly, they're not 100% certain that this individual is 100% well to the point where their wishes for example, to not have their mother arrive, because we don't know the history too, because the staff doesn't know if the mother was abusive or if it's not a real mother or whatever. There could be infinite situations where they're not necessarily going to be calling the mother and tell her to come. But how did they know she was coming?
Yeah, so if she didn't know that she was coming, the mom would have arrived.
If the staff didn't inform, well, the mom was arriving no matter what.
Oh, but the staff informed her, and that means
Informed Emma. The staff informed Emma,
yeah.
but Shelley never told them she was coming. So she was coming. Your question was kind of hilarious. If the staff hadn't told Emma, then the mom would not have arrived.
Wait, I meant like the mom. I mean, Emma would not have left. I meant.
Oh, possibly not. Yeah, correct. Possibly not. But here's the thing, though. Why not? Okay, again, the need for privacy needs to be respected. Why not also call the police? If they knew the mom was coming, why not also have the police there just in case? Because if she really doesn't want the mom there and the police are there, like there should have been some kind of more of an effort to help her, especially given the fact that they were concerned. Because they were concerned enough to call police and request a mental health check. Police didn't seem to care, and they said just to call back, and then the staff never called back. Now, either that could be one of two reasons. One, they didn't think the police were going to do anything, so why would they waste time dealing with them if they didn't want to help? Or two, they just figured, I guess Emma wasn't that unwell because she just continued to function. I don't know. But yes, the whole thing is just so sad because the mom just barely missed her. All right, so so after midnight, the shelter staff called police to report Emma missing person. All right, so let's go through the exact timeline and sightings. Tuesday, November 20th, at the YMCA, Emma visits the YMCA, located down the street from the shelter, to take out a membership. So she just became a member on November 20th. Is that coincidental because it's relatively close to the date of her disappearance? So was there someone there that could have spotted her, or some kind of an issue could have happened? We don't know. Surveillance video shows her entering and exiting the building 4 times within a 14-minute period. Okay, this is a piece of information we didn't have before. She's going to take out a membership, so now I think it's even less suspicious that she's coming and going 4 times, because can she not make up her mind whether or not she wants to become a member?
What do you mean by that?
Exactly what I said. So the friend at the shelter, one of the roommates at the shelter, told her that she could take out a membership at the YMCA so she wouldn't spend so much time at the shelter. So she's, from the information presented here, November 20th, the date the YMCA footage is from, that's the date that she's going to take out a membership.
Okay.
So if she can't decide, like if she goes in, takes a look around, walks out, she's like, I don't know if I want to be a member. Well, maybe I should give it another look. And she goes and does it again. Surveillance video. We looked at the surveillance video in the episode 1. Surveillance video shows her entering and exiting the building 4 times within a 14-minute period. She seems to be nervously peering out the glass doors as though waiting for or hiding from someone or something outside. She pauses for approximately 1 minute each time as she exits and enters the building, finally exiting for the last time and turning right. Some believe she was holding something in her hands, such as a cell phone or an iPod. Others suspect she is simply fidgeting. Yeah, the footage is strange. It definitely, again, factoring that footage with the other convenience store footage, it seems like she did think someone was after her. And
I gotta see that footage again.
Is it paranoia if somebody's really out to get you? Or is it just awareness? Okay, Wednesday, November 21st, the van is towed. Emma arranges to have a tow truck driver pick her up from Sandy Merriman Shelter and drive to Sook, British Columbia, to tow her red Mazda MPV back to the 700 block of Burdett Ave in Victoria. She is upbeat during the ride and talks about her plan to surprise her family by moving back home to Perth, Ontario. The driver recalls her looking up at the snow in the mountains, telling him she couldn't wait to go home where she could see the sun and snow. Friday, November 23rd, first call to her mom. Emma calls Shelley in tears around midnight, says she wants to come home. For Emma to reach out for help is unusual, so Shelley assures her all arrangements will be made for her to fly home immediately. Are you booking the flight? Emma asks anxiously. She won't say what is bothering her, but tells her mother she is safe. Okay, is that just appeasing her mother, or is it that's because it's true? She's physically safe, but there is something bothering her. We don't know. Saturday, November 24th, Emma changes her mind. Emma calls back hours later, advising Shelley not to come and that she will stay and figure things out for herself. Shelley is worried and can sense something is terribly wrong, but reluctantly respects Emma's wishes and cancels the flight. Change of plan. Later that same night, Emma calls again to say she wants to come home, but is overwhelmed and needs Shelley to travel to Victoria to help her pack all of her belongings. Shelley immediately books a flight. So, what does that tell us? Because this is a mysterious detail. So, originally, she wants the flight booked so she could fly home. However, now a day later, Saturday, November 24th, she tells her mom that she needs her mom's help to pack. Okay, does that mean there's no critical danger? If there's critical danger, you would why would you take all these countless belongings, right? You would just go.
Right.
So, is there no critical danger, no critical life-threatening danger, just some issues? And then she's overwhelmed. She wants her mom to come help her pack because she doesn't want to leave her stuff. Now, obviously, many people in many situations, they don't realize how critical an issue is. So, whether it's a stalker or whatever situation that we don't know about, if that person really, or whatever the situation is, if it's dangerous to her, if it is life-threatening, but she doesn't realize it, then she's going to be more concerned about her belongings. Again, we really don't know. Okay, Sunday, November 25th, another change of plan. Emma phones her mother in the morning. So from the previous night, this is now the morning. She has changed her mind again. She sounds calm and more confident during this call, but there is still a sadness in her voice. Shelley agrees not to come, but doesn't unpack. So does this mean Shelley is anticipating another call? That she changed her mind yet again if she's going back and forth? Okay, van is towed again. Because of parking enforcement, Emma has no choice but to arrange for her van to be towed again from Burdett Ave to a parking lot at the Chateau Victoria Hotel. So yeah, this whole situation with the van and all these different towings and her need for a mechanic, I'm sure that's troublesome for the mind, especially if that's packed on to another situation like a stalker or something else. Tuesday, November 27th, growing concerns. Shelley grows increasingly concerned and decides to dial the number on her call display, thinking Sandy Merriman might be the name of a friend Emma is staying with. She speaks to a staff member and is shocked to learn that Emma has been living in the women's shelter on and off since the winter of 2011. So about a year. Notice on the van. Staff from the Chateau Victoria put a notice on Emma's van to have it towed on Tuesday, November 27th. So now her van's going to need to be towed again. Okay. Emma calls her mom later that night, Tuesday, November 27th. Emma calls her mother again in tears, asking for help to come home. Shelley immediately makes arrangements to fly out the next day. I mean, this whole case is, it's so rough. So just another quick note on the towing. So it was towed to the Chateau Victoria November 21st. It was towed from Burdett Street to Chateau Victoria November 25th. November 27th, the staff notice. On November 28th, the day of her disappearance at 7 a.m., she went to the Chateau Victoria and asked to have one more day to arrange the towing, which was granted. Now, I'm not sure how all of that goes down, because if you're parked somewhere, do you have to be friends with the people, or were they just that nice because she seemed like she was homeless or staying in a shelter or whatever? But she asked. Again, in retracing her steps that day, I think it's very important to examine every avenue because we don't know what happened. So at 7 a.m., she's at the Chateau Victoria asking for one more day to arrange towing. That extra day is granted. On November 29th, her van was towed by Always Towing to their lot at the request of the hotel. So the police was located the van in the always towing lot. And it was identified by VIN number, and this is information from the Victoria Police Department. You followed all that, Maxwell?
Sort of. 27th. She got the car towed.
No, she did not. On the 27th, I said this is the third time going over it now. The notice on the van was put there on the 27th. On the 28th, the morning of her disappearance, of the date of her disappearance, she went to the Chateau Victoria at 7 a.m. and told them and asked for an extra day to arrange towing. And that extra day was granted. Follow?
Yeah, I got it.
On
That's
the
cool.
20, so now on the 29th, so this is the day, she disappears on the evening of the 28th. On the 29th, nothing to do with her, always towing tows the vehicle.
That's messed up.
Yeah, well, it's unclear. If they said they were supposed to tow it, I guess either if there's a notice for towing on the 27th, does that mean they're going to tow it on the 27th or the 28th? But she goes on the 28th at 7 a.m. to get one more day, so it appears, I guess one more day is 24 hours. Because on the 29th, the following day, it is towed. It doesn't say what time it's towed, but it's towed. So either 7 a.m., anywhere onward after 7 a.m., that's 24 hours from her request. All right, did you follow that time around?
Yeah. 24 hours, yep.
That wasn't the point of all that, but okay. So now we move on to Wednesday, November 28th, the day of her disappearance. At 4:30 a.m., Emma phones Shelley and changes her mind again. Don't come, Mom, not today. Shelley tells Emma she won't fly out to Victoria, but against the advice of the family, takes the first flight out that afternoon. Okay, that's 4:30 a.m. There's the call. Emma calls her mom at 4:30 a.m. And some of these calls apparently are late night calls. So this is a frantic couple of days because she's calling super late at night, calling super early in the morning, changing her mind back and forth. Okay, that's 4:30. 7 a.m. she's at the Chateau Victoria. And apparently they say the staff did say that she was very upset about the notice on her vehicle. 8:23 a.m. Emma is captured on video surveillance at the 7-Eleven store at the corner of Douglas and Humboldt Streets, where she uses her debit card to purchase $200 prepaid credit card. She is wearing a beige winter jacket, camouflage pants, and her hair is tied up in a bun. She is carrying several bags over her shoulder, including her orange purse. She lingers in the store by the doors, nervously peering out the window. So again, this is all with all this new information. So she also has a bank account with money in it. She has her mother arranging her flight. Does that mean it's all paid for? Why does she need the $200 prepaid card and she has all this stuff with her? Is she planning on leaving the area because she's afraid her mother is coming, or is she getting ready for the trip? Because at 4:30 a.m. she's telling her mom not to come. Shelley tells Emma she won't come. Unless for whatever reason she's lying about that and she said she's coming no matter what, which upset Emma, and for whatever reason the mom did not want to share that with anybody. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm leaning towards that did not happen because it seems like the mom would really want to do everything possible to help find her daughter, and that's a critical detail. If she's telling the mom not to come and the mom insisting that she's coming anyway, that's going to be rough emotionally. So is Emma fleeing here because she's suspecting that she's coming? But I don't think so, because I think the mom. I don't think the mom would hide that critical detail. And then also at 7 a.m. she's going to the Chateau Victoria to ask for one more day. So she's afraid that her mother is flying out immediately. She doesn't have another day unless she suspects that the mother's not going to fly out for another day. I don't know. It's strange. And is she still paranoid that somebody is following her or whatnot at the 7-Eleven store? All factors to keep in consideration. 10 a.m. While riding the bus, Julian Huard sees Emma on Pandora Street across from the Alex Goulden Hall. He disembarks a few stops early to talk to Emma, who is standing on the edge of the sidewalk one step away from the road. She is wearing a puffy light-colored coat, her hoodie pulled up over her head, and hair flowing out in disarray. She is carrying plastic bags in each hand with more bags over her shoulder and across her chest. He observes her from the back and profile but cannot see her face. So he decides to go register for his health card as planned and returns to find Emma still there, standing motionless on the corner. He steps onto the street in front of her and peers into her hoodie to ask if she needs help, and Emma slowly shakes her head as if to say no. He observes her for a short while until he decides then and there he is done with Emma. She won't accept help when offered. Okay, now obviously we went over Julian Ford, very suspicious individual. The endless coincidences of him just happening to move all the way out across the country to Victoria. Again, not the biggest coincidence, because Victoria is a big city. It's not like it's a small little hamlet in the middle of nowhere. That would be probably a bridge too far. But even in Victoria, it is coincidental. And this story, we haven't heard this exact detail of his account. He specifically disembarks a few stops early to talk to Emma. But if he doesn't know it's Emma, because it says that he observed her from the back and profile without seeing her face. So I guess he suspected it was her from her clothes if he had seen her previously and that's what she was wearing. What do you make of this Julian Huard character? We discussed him pretty at length in the first episode. It's very bizarre, but at the same time,
Well, it's easy to spot someone you know, like even from far away, like even if it's turned around. I think you can tell just by the way the body moves and the body shape.
well, he's saying that she's just standing there, so there's no movement.
That's fine too. You can still like you can know someone's like body type and dress.
And then the other curious thing, he is done with Emma, like he's that pissed off at her, like she's obviously troubled. She doesn't accept help at that moment, but he could offer help again. I mean, are his statements betraying him? But at the same time, if he really was shady and guilty, would he be going out of his way to admit all these little details? It's very bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna revisit him again later. All right, so that was 10 a.m. Is it a coincidence that he happens to see her just hours before her disappearance? Again, if we look at FBI statistics, when a woman goes missing, it's usually the significant other, or an boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, husband, ex-husband, or some kind of somebody interested in the girl who they know, who's known to them. So, keeping that in mind, should we let this Julian Horde off the hook? Obviously, he is very bizarre, and he's offering a lot more than he could. Almost as if he's going out of his way to help when he doesn't need to. All right, how many coincidences are we willing to accept, though? We don't know. All right. Noon. Some people think Emma visited the library sometime around noon, so I guess these would be unconfirmed sightings. Early afternoon. A friend, colleague, unknown what that means, I guess somebody she might have worked with, sees Emma sometime in the early afternoon near Our Place Soup Kitchen on Pandora Street. Her hair is tucked into her jacket. She says she isn't feeling well at all and can't talk. He asks if she needs a hug, but she retreats with an uncharacteristic, horrified look on her face. So this is in an unsubstantiated time in the early afternoon. At 1 p.m., there's a witness who spotted Emma looking vacant-eyed, slowly shuffling along on Pandora Street. She isn't wearing a hat, and her hair looks as if it has been freshly washed, as opposed to earlier that morning. She is carrying several white plastic bags, an orange satchel, and is wearing camouflage pants and a white fleece jacket. The witness later reports the sighting to police and eventually hears back from the police department, who take the full report. So this does seem to possibly add up with the early afternoon sighting at the soup kitchen on Pandora Street. The other interesting thing is that she says she isn't feeling well at all. Not well at all. And can't talk. And she gets scared when he asks if she needs a hug. Okay. All right. This is not looking good. We also don't really have other days to compare to, which also prevents us from being able to gather as much insight, because is this day a lot different than her typical day? We don't really know. Afternoon, 2 people report seeing Emma on Douglas Street sometime in the afternoon. They were so concerned by Emma's strange behavior of walking back and forth in the street looking confused and lost, they immediately called police, who took the report. However, it is unclear if they followed up. This was the first 911 call made that day. The witnesses recall her wearing shoes, though they later learned from others who saw Emma that day wandering barefoot in the street. Okay, so there seems to be quite a few witnesses who are saying that Emma seems to be very confused throughout this day and out of it, confused and lost. Another witness reports seeing Emma walking downtown that afternoon with an older man. No description of the man was provided. Okay, is this other sighting also credible? We don't know. We don't have times on these. These are all just sometime in the afternoon. And if a lot of these people that are giving these eyewitness statements, if they're homeless or transient type people, they don't necessarily keep track of the time to the, as much as someone who's going through a working day or a school day, because I guess they don't have to. I don't know. So we don't really have time periods here. A man who visited the Rock Bay shelter claims he saw Emma there at some point that afternoon. No details are provided. This is a shelter Emma refused to stay in as it was co-ed. So again, that would point to a lesser likelihood that it was her at that shelter, that this sighting is legitimate, unless she's that confused and lost and she's not thinking clearly, and she might not even realize that she had refused to stay there earlier, or if this older man she's with made her feel safe or whatever, we don't know. 4 to 6 p.m., Emma is sighted by the same person at 2 different locations. She first crosses their path as they exit the main Douglas Street doors of the Bay Center. She is shuffling, moving slowly northward on the west side of Douglas Street, her long mane of hair flowing out the side of her hood. About 45 minutes later, they are in a car stopped at the corner of Douglas and Finlayson Streets, when, to their surprise, they see Emma crossing the street in front of them. She glances their way and gives a sad smile. They really want to help, but fear she might question their intentions. They go to Victoria PD headquarters to report the sightings on November 30th. Police take their contact information, but never call back to get the full report. This is not good, Maxwell. This seems like a credible sighting. Huh. They don't even, why not get the full report? I don't know. It's weird. Okay. 5:54 p.m., Emma uses her debit card to purchase a prepaid cell phone at the same 7-Eleven where she purchased the prepaid credit card. Video surveillance shows her paying for the phone, then she lingers in the store by the doors, nervously peering outside as if she is afraid to leave or is avoiding someone. The cell phone she purchased has never been activated. 6 p.m., Emma goes to the Sandy Merriman shelter. Witnesses at the shelter report Emma becoming very anxious and upset when told by a staff member that her mother is on the way. She storms out the front door. One resident tries to run after her, but quickly loses sight. She reports Emma having mixed feelings of relief and fear about her mother's arrival. I'm unsure how so was Emma at first relieved, and then all of a sudden she changed her mind and got mad and stormed out? We don't really know.
Wait, that's so weird. Who was making that judgment?
A witness at the shelter.
That's pretty detailed, relieved, and
Yeah, it is. I don't know how she came to that, unless that person made up the account. Someone's covering up something. Or not. Or she just believed that that's what it was after hearing other information. Who knows? You know how witnesses can attribute or misattribute certain things based on other information that's given to them? So we really don't know. Though Shelley spoke with staff on the phone the day before, she did not tell them she was heading to Victoria. You know what's weird? If the staff assumed she was, just because she had called to find out about it, so they were like, oh, she's probably coming, and then that's what they told Emma. Not that they knew she was coming for sure, but we don't know. 6:10 p.m., a driver with ABC Taxi picks Emma up near the shelter. She asks him to take her to the airport, but suddenly changes her mind. Even though she had $2,000 to $3,000 in her bank account, she tells him she can't afford the $60 fare and asks to be dropped off exactly where she was picked up. Here's the other thing about the money, though, that I don't know if this is discussed thoroughly. If she's in a certain state of mind, she might not even remember she has that money in her bank account, because if she's frantic, emotionally distraught, and just completely out of it, she might have even forgot about her prepaid credit card. She might just not have that in mind, and she's just so frantic mentally. If she doesn't have $60 cash, she might think she doesn't have it, or who knows? Or if she really did just say that, just to be whatever. But she asked to be dropped off exactly where she was picked up. I don't know. What do we make of that? Because it's that detail is weird to me. Because if she's afraid of somebody that's following her, okay, so if someone saw her get picked up, wouldn't she want to be dropped off somewhere else? Unless she feels safe near the shelter, but then her mother's coming to the shelter, or at least she thinks she might be. So why go back? We really don't know. When they arrive, she asks if she can sit in his cab for a while. The driver observes her behaving strangely. She becomes anxious and paranoid when she hears the dispatch radio. She stares at it and asks, why is there noise coming out of that?
Does she think that her mother would be in danger? Is that one of the theories? Like,
She thinks her mother would be in danger by coming there?
yeah, like someone's gonna hurt her.
I've actually never heard that, but that's a really interesting theory. I didn't think of that.
Because, like, relieved and feared, like relieved she's coming, but now she's coming. Maybe the person that's gonna hurt Emma is also gonna hurt the mother or something like that.
I had not thought of that.
And then that's why she left, to protect the mom or some shit like that.
But if the mom is coming to the shelter and the person's stalking her, wouldn't she still be? I mean, how would her leaving make the mom safe? Unless, wow, I just had a really dark thought. Unless she confronted the individual, because the individual doesn't want anything with her mom. So in her mind, if she sacrificed herself for the mother, that would be pretty dark.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like a flank, not flank. Is it flanking? No, not flanking. Like, uh, yeah, just guiding the perpetrators somewhere else.
Misdirecting or directing?
Yeah, directing.
Yeah. I don't know. None of this really makes any sense, because if that was her goal, why not just leave in the why go back to that spot? I don't know. And why just sit in the cab for a while? I don't know. I don't think. I mean, it's hard. Obviously, we don't know what she was thinking or why. So we can only examine the information that we have here. So she pays the fare with her debit. So she thinks that the rate. She asks why the dispatch radio. Why is there noise coming out of that? So I don't know. She pays the fare with her debit card and quickly exits the cab. 6:15 p.m. Dennis Quay, an acquaintance of Emma, sees her standing barefoot on a corner, looking disoriented, paranoid, and seemingly unable to cross the street. He asks if she is looking for someone or if someone is following her. She doesn't say much and keeps looking all around her. She asks him to walk with her for a bit, but becomes increasingly uncomfortable with his questions and concern, and decides to walk on her own. At approximately 7 p.m., he enters a nearby restaurant to call police and waits until they arrive. He observes them talking with Emma for a while, then leaves, assuming she is safely in their care. This is at 6:15 p.m., shortly after the minutes after the taxi ride. This is really rough. It seems like she really could be suffering from some kind of health issue, not necessarily a mental health issue, but if it's something nutritional, or she's got some severe brain fog going on, like a physiological lack of nutrition, not necessarily, again, some kind of genetic mental disease, although obviously we don't know. But yeah, it's pretty bizarre. So she was supposedly drinking copious amounts of water, but what if she didn't drink water that day? Is it possible she could have been delirious, dehydrated, malnutritioned at that point, and not able to physically function or think clearly?
Those are good points.
7:17 p.m., police locate Emma barefoot and clutching her shoes by the Empress Hotel on Government Street, and two officers assess her for 45 minutes. According to police notes, at no time did Emma engage in a dialogue, but rather answered with one word or nodded her head. It was almost 30 minutes before she even spoke, and then only gave her name at their insistence. Okay, if someone is in the most extreme state of delirium, dehydration, malnutrition, are they going to be capable of saying their name? I guess they would. But if she is able to give her name, if she is able to nod in response to questions, it's rough. But then again, this is at 7:17 p.m. So within the next few hours, if her condition got even worse than that, yeah, we don't know. Okay. She refused to put her shoes back on and said she was just taking a walk and planned to meet with a friend. Again, we don't know if that's true or not. If it is true, we need to know who that friend is. By 8 p.m., police decide she is not a threat to herself or anyone else and watch her walk away. This is the last confirmed sighting of Emma. The identities of the two officers are protected by privacy laws. Wait, are they really? Aren't they public servants? Isn't this public? That's kind of
That's weird. That's really weird for
well.
a
This is
cop to have private.
this is Canada. This is Canada. I guess they have different laws. Yeah, in the U.S., I believe all police officers are always named. Okay, so details of the conversation have not been released. Shelley sent a Freedom of Information request on May 19th, 2015, which was denied by the Victoria PD without a reason given. What do you make of that, Maxwell? Is it
Say that one more time.
Shelley sent a Freedom of Information request. So she wants to know the names of the officers, or at the very least, the details of the conversation. She wants the police notes from this 45-minute officer assessment when the officer spoke to her. So Shelley is Emma's mother. Do you remember who Emma is?
Yeah, but did they refuse to give her?
That's what I just said. The Freedom of Information request was denied without reason. They didn't even cite a reason for the denial.
That's messed up.
Yeah, so are they simply protecting? They just don't want to look bad because they failed Emma and now she's missing and who knows what happened to her? Or is there something much deeper going on? There are some serious mind shocks coming.
It's a conspiracy.
There are some mind shocks coming, Maxwell, and you're not going to be ready for them. You're not going to be ready. But before we get to them, let's finish the day. 11 p.m., Shelley arrives at the shelter, learns Emma did not claim her bed. The shelter calls police immediately to report Emma missing. Midnight, police arrive at the shelter shortly after midnight to take the report. Emma is declared a missing person. Well, at least they had her declared as a missing person. In the U.S., I mean, I guess there's endangered individuals and there's all these weird laws, but this is a couple hours after the police spoke to her, and they do declare her a missing person at that time. Okay, so that is the timeline. Those are her steps retraced. So obviously we do have a gap. So we have a gap between 10 a.m. and noon. So this is the Julian Horde sighting. And then some people think they saw Emma at the library. So those are not confirmed. So here's another thing. Some people theorize that she used the computer, the internet at the library to find out tow information at around this time. So the other thing we don't know, so some people, again, there's some very, very skilled researchers online, and they've come up with quite a few theories, including that Emma actually, because Emma was picked up at 6:10 p.m. at the Harvard Air Terminal and asked him to take her to the airport. So, because we don't know where Emma was planning on flying to, because she was heading to the Victoria Airport. This is confirmed by her mother, that she was heading to the Victoria Airport. So if some of these sightings in the afternoon were false and she was trying to get to the airport at a different time as well, and then she came back and didn't. So her passport is in her van, which she did not retrieve. What does that tell you, Maxwell?
Her passport was not in her van? Is that what you
Her
said?
passport was in her van, it was not on her person. Because they found it in her van.
That's messed up. So, yeah, I don't know what to think of that.
All right, here's the other thing. So, some of the theories on why she was buying the prepaid card, so this card was purchased 8:23 a.m., if she needed to pay to get her van out of for the tow or the van, so
if they only accept credit card or cash, she would need to get that prepaid card, which is why she got it. I don't know what she was using with, but there are transportation issues, of course. Okay, so another interesting point, if we can believe this new witness, this is the witness that came forward in 2018, 5 a.m., November 29th, 2012. A man was on his way to work at a new job, already running a little late, when he saw a young woman darting back and forth on the side of the road. She seemed to be in distress, so he pulled over and she got into his vehicle around 1264 Esquimalt Road, Victoria. He noticed she was shoeless and soaking wet and seemed as though she had been walking all night. Her demeanor suddenly shifted to calm and content once she stepped inside his car and asked if he could take her to Colwood to visit a girlfriend. Since he didn't want to be even more late in his first week of training, he told her he could only bring her a little closer to Colwood. They had been driving for around 5 minutes when he stopped to drop her off at the intersection of Craigflower and Admirals, next to a Legion and a 24-hour gas station. The moment she exited the car, her behavior suddenly shifted back to paranoid and erratic as she darted back and forth in the street before finally taking off in the direction of Colwood. So again, when we're discussing her physical state, she seems to know the direction. If this is true, she knows the direction of Colwood. She can still talk. She's not completely gone here, so she can still function. Okay, he didn't realize who he picked up that morning until long after the incident took place and came forward almost 6 years later in June 2018. He contacted the Victoria PD, who told him to contact Crime Stoppers about his interaction with Emma 9 hours after she was last seen talking to police by the Empress Hotel. That's kind of weird. The police don't want a full report from him. They just want him to contact Crime Stoppers? Don't they want to don't they want to find out what happened to Emma? It's weird. When he realized there was no follow-up to his tip, he got in touch with Emma's mother, Shelley, and a longtime advocate in the search for Emma named Kimberly Bordage, who interviewed him at length and released a podcast on November 2nd, 2018, called The Search for Emma Fillipoff. Episode 1 details her in-depth timeline of the week leading up to Emma's disappearance, which includes never-before-released information, while the second half highlights her interview with the new witness, William, followed by details regarding the new canine search effort. Okay. So, this new witness, if this is the last confirmed sighting, that'd be 5 a.m. So, this would be going in Colwood, 5:15 a.m., November 29th. Okay, there are other issues with the tow, because it was impounded and towed from the Chateau Victoria lot, but it was found back in their lot. Because it looks like was this done for free? Or was someone trying to hide their connection to Emma and put the van back in the Chateau Victoria lot? Also, there's a bus that would get her to the Juan de Fuca Center where the card was found. It takes about 31 minutes. So some people also are puzzled why she didn't take a bus from downtown directly to the ferry, which would have been cheaper than the cab and faster than the transit bus or the coach. The bus terminal is not far from Empress, where she was last spotted. So the bus ride to the ferry airport is an hour. The cab would have been faster and more private, but different options. The coach goes directly to the ferry, no stops. And so I don't know if the police did a real investigation, but it does not look like they did, because it has the CCTV footage. So we're at the end of 2012 here. So there is CCTV footage all over the place, right?
Yeah, I would say that.
I mean, definitely at bus terminals, at public transportation terminals. Did they check any of these terminals to see if she had taken a different bus or taken a bus? And then there's also another airport, so the YVR, if she wanted to catch a plane, there were different options. And she could also get to a train station. Pacific Coach Lines is the coach, and it's near the Empress. So they go to BC Ferries, and it's less than $15. She could also take a train to downtown Vancouver. But of course, if she's not thinking clearly. So, and other people chimed in that there's a float plane airport in the inner harbor, a 5-minute walk. So she could get to somewhere else from there. Other people also point out that why did she purchase a cell phone randomly, a prepaid cell phone? Was it to call 911 in case of emergency because she was afraid of her stalker, if there was one?
I can see that.
But
And also she didn't have a cell phone, right?
yeah, but she didn't want one.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. Like that's what I mean. Like she would only get a cell phone for emergency.
Exactly. Now, is it coincidental that all of this is going down on the last day that she's spotted? Because like, why not get a cell phone for 911 purposes a week before, 2 weeks before, a month before, 3 months before? It happened all
Yeah.
that
I guess
day.
yeah. Like so she's worried.
Yeah. The van. I keep going back to the van situation though. There's something off about the whole van situation and the towing.
Do you suspect the tow drivers?
I don't know. I don't necessarily suspect anyone. It could have been the staff at the hotel and nothing to do with it. I'm just saying there's
But
something
for
weird.
some reason, I was just thinking about the tow truck drivers because like if you're a full-time tow truck driver, like you kind of get bored, and this is what I'm guessing, and I'm guessing since you meet so many people, and sometimes you'll come across like attractive people that you like, and like I'm guessing like they would probably like fantasize like how would they do things, you know what I mean? Like they would like pre-plan stuff or fantasize about things. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's
I'm
possible,
just
but
guessing.
it's possible, but I get, yeah, I just keep going back to the van though. So she arrives at the Chateau Victoria and her van is actually gone because the van got towed the night before or the morning of her leaving. So she needs the van back. So who paid for all this? We really so if her van was impounded towed from the Chateau Victoria lot, which she discussed with staff morning 28, but it was found back in the lot following her disappearance. So was it not really towed? They told her it was towed. It wasn't towed. I don't like the whole tow situation. All right, so Shelley did contact the tow truck driver, Maxwell. This is what she stated online, March 24th, 2015. I was in contact with the tow truck driver and we spoke at length. He told me that when Emma saw the snow in the mountaintops that she said she couldn't wait to get back home and surprise her family. Okay. So there was no doubt in his mind as to her plans. She stated them clearly and coherently. So it seems like she didn't really suspect the tow truck driver. She spoke with him at length and So the other thing in the first call to her mother, she said she wants to come home but she doesn't know what to do with her stuff and the van. So that's an interesting point. Obviously, over the next 4 days, she cancels, calls for help, and cancels again. So she didn't pay for the parking at the hotel. At 7 a.m., she discovers this. And so I guess she asks for another day. What does that do? How did the van go back to the parking lot? And did she pay for it? Because she didn't pay for the parking. And keep in mind, she has $2 to $3 grand in her bank account. So at 6:10, the cab goes from the Harbor Air Terminal, which is next to where she worked, and 2 blocks from the 7-Eleven. Now, the Harbor Air only flies in the daytime. So on November 21st, the tow truck driver picked Emma up at the shelter, drove her to her van stored at West Coast Storage in Sook, then tows the van back to the Chateau Victoria Hotel Parkade in downtown Victoria. And this is on this drive on November 21st is when Emma tells him she's planning to surprise her family by going home. The tow truck driver later comments on her odd, paranoid behavior more than once. Okay. And the van was towed to the impound lot in Victoria. Because, yeah, that's another point. How did Emma find out her van was towed? Unless she went there to get her stuff and it wasn't there, and that's when that all occurred. So in late November, the last seaplane is at 3:15 p.m. and the last flight from Vancouver arrives at 4:15 p.m. So the fare from flying from Victoria Inner Harbor to the Victoria International Airport is $150. So did she buy that prepaid credit card to pay for that? And then she arrived at the terminal too late to catch that flight. And then that's why she was taking the cab to the YVR airport. Someone also found a discrepancy that the cab driver gave two different accounts. One, she said that the driver had no idea, that she said she had no idea where she was going. In the other account, he said she asked to be driven to the airport. Although that could be a poor interviewer when after she said she didn't have the fare, she had no idea where she was going and she just said take her back to where to pick her up. I don't know. So this points to different things because if this is a functioning individual adapting to changing and stressful situations, with the addition of an even more stressful situation we don't know about, like a potential stalker, would someone with a severe mental illness be able to be able to cope and make this many adjustments throughout one day? What do you think, Maxwell? Or were they, and then there was a breaking point at some point in the day?
Um, uh, I don't know.
Maxwell Army. We doing a podcast or what?
I need to hear the question again.
She's making a lot of adjustments, right? She's going, if she went to the harbor to catch a plane, it's too late. Now now she needs a cab to go to the airport. Oh, but now she doesn't have the money or whatever it is. She doesn't want to pay for the money. So if she's making all these adjustments throughout the day, is this a functioning individual able to make adjustments and deal with stressful situations? Or
I see. I see what you. I see. Yeah, that's very functional and very cognizant
unlike Maxwell?
at this time. Yeah.
So, yeah. And was there a breaking point? Like she doesn't have the van. Her mom's coming. Her mom's not coming. She's being stalked. She missed because people snap when enough things get piled on, and then they miss. They're late for one thing. They miss another thing, and it's just once the stack gets to a certain point, like that's a breaking point. Is that what happened this day?
I can see that happening. People snap, and then she must have done something drastic, but I don't know. Like she just completely disappeared.
So yeah, I mean, people discussing this timeline though. This if she did take a bus out of the area that night, because some of the buses have a 7:45 p.m. departure. But then what about the new sighting, which puts her at 5 a.m. The 5 a.m. sighting, which still puts her in the Victoria area, going to Colwood. So then she didn't take a bus to an airport. If this is true. I mean, do we know with 100% certainty that he picked up Emma, or was it someone he thought was Emma? I mean, it seems like it was Emma, so yeah, she probably did not get out of that area. But they should have went over all the security footage. I mean, again, this is not, early 2000s, 90s, 80s. There are security cameras all over the place. They need to do a thorough investigation. So just to retrace her steps, if she bought the phone at the 7-Eleven, she was in the store for about 5 minutes, being paranoid. Then she walked a few blocks to her old workplace, Harbor Air, and if there's nothing going from there and it's too late, she hailed a cab, and there would have been a lot of cabs in that area at that time of night. So those would have been her steps up to that point. Her reported mental state from the Find Emma Facebook page was, quote, in emotional distress, fragile, and vulnerable, end quote. So she was, obviously, there were sightings in Vancouver, unconfirmed. And so did she get to Vancouver? But again, we have to go back to that 5 a.m. sighting, the 5 a.m. ride to Colwood. So, a lot of people, especially early on in the investigation, they were saying she would not get in a stranger's car or hitchhike or any of this stuff, but that's also up for debate. Because if she did get in, if that 5 a.m. sighting is legit, that's exactly what she did. And according to that sighting, she felt perfectly fine while in the vehicle and not while outside of the vehicle. Other people also point to that she would have given the shelter the courtesy of saying that she was leaving, because then they could free a space for someone else, because they were expecting her to claim her bed. I don't know, but unless she was distressed. Okay, also, she did not get to the impound lot because it was still there when she went missing. Again, there's few conflicting reports on that. So her passport and laptop were in her van. So obviously she probably would have taken those things if traveling. So if they were in the impound lot and she couldn't get it, then she wouldn't be able to get it. Someone posted this theory online Did she just give up out of frustration and walk away? She was having a rough day. Something may have happened at the shelter, in addition to the van being towed, and then the last interaction she had with law enforcement. I'm thinking the law enforcement talk may have been the last straw, and she snapped. Also, if all this is
That's a pretty good theory, because a lot of times, like, cops can be so confrontational. That could be it.
Well, and also all the people overly concerned. She might be getting annoyed because Julian's like, "Yeah, are you okay? Do you need help?" And then all these other friends, "Do you need a hug? Do you need help? Is everything okay?" And then they're calling police on her. She might have just been pissed off. Because if she was in a certain state where she didn't realize like how that all looked, and in her own head she was perfectly fine and everything shouldn't have looked that way, that might have been very, very frustrating to deal with. Also, what's going on at the shelter? Because what if she didn't feel safe at the shelter for a different reason other than her mother? And so is she really going to that friend's house in Colwood?
Yeah.
Some people also theorize did the friend not come forward because something happened to the friend that nobody knows about? If there's an unrelated case with that person's murder or there's another murder or disappearance that nobody can connect to this case. If it is connected, that person was never able to come forward to say, "Oh yeah, Emma was planning to come visit me." Or they can have another situation where if they were involved in something illegal, they don't want to, they don't want to draw attention to themselves, not because they had anything to do with Emma, or some mutual friend had something to do with Emma, and the other friend is afraid of them. I mean, obviously there's all these situations that can happen we don't know. So she is a photographer, and she had her photos and her laptop with her photos on there. So it seems like she really would want to get it. And the people that argue for the snap theory is that so much went wrong that she just didn't care about all that stuff anymore. Like once you hit a critical point, all that stuff becomes irrelevant. All right, you ready for the final mind shock of the episode, Maxwell?
Sure.
So again, Victoria PD refused to release the information, but there were several possible sightings of Emma in the Slocan Valley and hitchhiking around the area where the original family homestead was at Shore Acres back in 2013. So is there some kind of a connection? So the Nelson Royal Canadian Mounted Police requested the transcripts of the interview with Emma, but they refused to share. Also, the Sandy Merriman shelter won't release any records in relation to Emma either. They won't release the records to police or family. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
So, plenty more mind shocks to come in the Emma Fillipoff series, including new theories that have never been proposed before. We had to trace her steps again, and then we're also going to talk about even more sightings and scenarios to try to attempt to unravel this very mysterious disappearance. But there's definitely more than meets the eye here. So thanks again for joining us on another edition of MindShock True Crime. Once again, if you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Make sure your device allows those notifications to come through. Any questions, comments, theories, leave them in the comments section. If you like the podcast, hit the like button. Feel free to share it across social media platforms. And make sure to like and follow our Facebook page for exclusive updates not posted anywhere else. And you can also check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
I'm Maxwell Powers.
We'll catch you guys next time.